don't know why I'm doing this. I'm going live. And I'm going to try to keep up on the text on here. Um, Welcome to TikTok Live. Again, I don't know how to use this very well. I have no goals, no life goals. There's no likes. Just started. I'm going to be pulling parts for the 6991 because I haven't built it yet in a while. So I'm going to do that. And in the background, we can hear classical 96.3. I don't know if that's legal, but whatever. I got my Piron over there open on the laptop, and I'm going to be hey, back. This is going to be a very boring live. I'm going to be pulling parts for the 6991. And we'll see what happens. So I'm going to go grab some parts. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to be talking about parts. Because this is one of my favorite parts. I know it's a lot of people had a problem with this back in the day because they were saying base plate should be flat and not like this should be brick built. Well, you're not going to brick build this in a set. So I always like these. I have a whole bunch of them over there. More black ones than the rest of them, but of course I got the one for Ice Planet, the one for the castles and whatever in the pirates. But part number one. so we're it says invite other people. I don't think so. Who can I invite? I don't know how to do this. Nobody. Okay, so I can get rid of that. So so there's part number one right there, and let's go find some 16 by 32s, hopefully, in my room. I will be the first to admit that my collection is not as sorted as I want it to be. I think the 16 by 32 base plates only came in. I can open it up right now. The 16 by 32 black base plates only came in the 6991. Well, that's very nice. I never got the Voltron set. I actually feel bad about that. So, it's one of those ones I didn't get, but I'll tell you which one I did get. Just because I wanted a gift with purchase. And it's still in the box. So we can talk about that for a sec. So, the Optimus Prime. So, my mind's fuzzy more than yesterday in history. So, hey Google, stop. Optimus Prime, the Transformers cartoon came out, I think I was in high school when it hit the airwaves.
I don't have any information about that.
Cool. Hey Google, stop. There. So Transformers came out when I was in high school, so I was a little too like I heard of them and they were in the stores when I was looking for Lego. That's in high school. So I don't know what year, early 80s maybe. I don't think it was past 1985. So somewhere between 80 and 85, the Transformers cartoon was on American or Canadian TV, and I basically, since I was interested in Lego and I saw the Transformers in the stores. So when I was a kid, Battle of the Planets was the anime show, and we didn't call it anime back then. Japanimation was something that was sort of talked about, and I sort of knew, but it was just a cartoon that we ran home from grade school to watch on TV at 3:30. And then Star Blazers came out, and that was far beyond Battle of the Planets, and then I hit high school. And then, so the cartoons, the Japanese animation kind of went away in the wayside. I did start hanging around comic book stores at that time. And so I saw, the Punishers and the X-Men and all that stuff. And some of the Japanese anime that was coming out, the manga. Manga. I can say that. And so I wasn't that interested. I was hardcore into Star Trek up since I was 4. Still am. And so I would go to the comic book store because it was Silver Snail, downtown Hamilton. I rode my bike downtown Hamilton from here. And the Silver Snail. And I would pick up the cast iron figurines of the Enterprise and the Klingon Bird of Prey and the shuttlecrafts, whatever. There was a couple board games. So Silver Snail, posters. I have no regrets, but I had about 50 plus posters. The movie posters, the homemade posters. There was a couple 6-foot posters of Kirk and Spock, kind of I would say painted, a really good painting in the transporter from the original series, all that stuff. So I had all that stuff. They're gone now. I took them to the thrift store decades ago because I don't have room for it. Am I filtering my comments? Oh, thank you. Okay, I can't read this. It's just like I have to. Thank you, Asbad. That's very sweet of you. So I took them all to the thrift store down the street years, like decades ago, just like my Commodore 64 stuff. All went to hardcore Trekkie. Anyway, I still am a huge, like, my favorite. It's more of a way of life, Star Trek. But I don't have too much. I have a few things in here because, I am. But I don't have too much other trinkets and or stuff from my other favorite things. Doctor Who, I got this. My wife gave it to me for Christmas. So I got a few things non-Lego in this room that I have passions for. Like that. So, but anyway, so back to Japanese animation. So I was in high school when Transformers came out, and what happened there was I wasn't that interested. That's sort of kind of neat. My younger cousins and friends that had younger brothers had lots of them. Optimus Prime. Oh, that's kind of neat. It transforms. And I had seen a few because I'm over there and they have your kid brothers or whatever, and they're watching Transformers. So I know the gist of Transformers. But I thought I avoided all that. So after Transformers, G.I. Joe and Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and all that stuff came out after in my 20s and whatever. Life goes on. And so, and when I was in my 20s, I wasn't married. I didn't have kids. So I thought I had avoided all of that. All of it. I will say when I was in college, I had a good friend, Mark, a really good friend. He was hardcore into Transformers. He had all the original iterations of the Autobots and the Decepticons because he brought them. Like, in high school, he was a Transformers freak. I was a Star Trek freak, and so I got really hardcore. We saw the movie. I think it came out in '86. We saw the movie in the theater, and I liked it. I'm gonna say I liked Transformers the movie, and it did hit me when Optimus died. Not spoilers. Spoilers. Optimus died. So anyway, so life goes on. In my 20s, I didn't get married, so therefore I'm not having kids. And my 30s goes by without me getting married until the end of my 30s and not having kids. And so I thought I avoided all that. So all my cousins' kids, all my brother's kids, blah, blah, hardcore, and the Ninja Turtles and Power Rangers and blah, blah, blah. I'm buying them gifts and blah, blah, blah when they're 3 or 4 or 5 and early 2000s and late 1990s. But I'm not interested. I am not interested. So thought I avoided all that. So we had Josh in 2009. We had Josh, and Josh at his earliest ages, like three or 4, watching TV, stumbled across Ninja Turtles, and he loved it. And then he got into Power Rangers, and he was hardcore. He went as a Power Ranger one year for Halloween. Like at 4 or 5, he was a Power Ranger, and so we saw all the Power Rangers and all the various iterations of Power Rangers. And then we also got into Transformers. We saw the movies were coming out, Michael Bay movies, whatever, blah blah blah. Witwicky. Okay, Megan Fox, like, hate her, like her. The movies were fine for what they were. I mean, whatever. They weren't War and Peace. They weren't Emma Thompson. Like they are what they are. Nice action flicks, and so we saw them in the theater. So it's whatever, and I enjoyed them. But I always knew Optimus Prime. So But I wasn't going to buy Optimus Prime. I was not, the Lego set, when the Lego set was released. I wasn't going to buy it at all. I'm not overtly keen on buying new Lego sets. It's not my stuff. If you have any idea about my collection, it basically focuses from 1965 to 1990. This entire room, I can probably build any set during those timelines that was ever released. There's very, very few that I every once in a while I try to task my collection to see if I can build a set, because I bought lots of used, not lots if you don't know. But anything after 1995, besides like the RCX, which I bought in the NXT, in the EV3, blah blah blah, because I was hardcore into robotics. And specific sets that I wanted to buy. I'm not one of these collectors who have to collect a lot of sets. I'm not. A lot of different sets from the Lego company after 1995. So, but again, I do have Winnie the Pooh, because I bought it for my wife. She loves Winnie the Pooh, so when they released the Winnie the Pooh set, I got Winnie the Pooh, and I got Sesame Street right there, because I grew up, and Sesame Street started the year I was born. Like, Sesame Street was a big part of my life. I saw Follow That Bird in the theater by myself, and if you know when that, I was almost 20 when that movie, and here's me in the matinee as a 20-year-old, no kid with me. I'm with all these moms and like little ankle biters all over the place, and I'm watching, and I enjoyed the movie. Now, I haven't seen it since. I've only seen that movie once, and we loved the Muppets when we were kids. Blah, blah. So, where was I going with this? So, anyway, so I wasn't going to buy Transformers. I wasn't going to buy Optimus, because it's a nice to have, but it's not a need to have. Saturn V, need to have. The Galaxy Explorer 10497, need 3, at least. Stuff like that. But the nice to haves, like, I'm not willing to spend $200 plus on a Lego set, a new Lego set that is just going to sit on the shelf. I like doing shows. I like building stuff, and if I bought Optimus Prime, it's built once and leave it, like all my other stuff. So I wasn't going to buy them, but then, let me see if I can find them really quick. Then the Lego company this year decides to, whoops, that wasn't good. Timber decides to release this set as a gift with purchase this year. Now, again, classic space, hardcore classic space guy. Since the beginning, I got my first classic space set in 1978, 1979. And so I collect basically, quote unquote, all the classic space sets. I bought most of them off the shelf up until Spyrius. From 1980 to Spyrius, I bought most of them off the shelf. I was complete with Blacktron 1, Space Police 1, M-Tron, Blacktron 2 is where I started to wane a little bit. I didn't get the Alpha Centauri, but I got the rest of them. I got most of the Ice Planet, because they're just, if Classic Space wasn't my favorite, Ice Planet would be my favorite. But I do love Blacktron 1 especially. And so when they release this as a gift with purchase, I have to buy $250 here in Canada to get the gift with purchase. So they release a set. We have to drive into Toronto. And anybody saying hi? If I'm missing your text, I'm sorry. So we drive into Toronto when I called them up. And I said, hey guys, do you have any of these guys left? Gift with purchase? Oh, lots. Perfect. So we get to the store, and of course they have the Coliseum, they have the piano, they have tons of those sets that are quote unquote nice to have, but I'm not that interested. I mean, I always say this: if money wasn't a factor and space wasn't a factor, I'd buy all of them. I'd buy all of them. Like, seriously, I would keep on buying Lego. So I like Lego. It is my hobby, but I like to, because I don't have enough space and I don't have enough money, I like to contain it to my actual loves of the Lego company, which is classic. So I'm in the store. What am I going to get? So I'm looking around because I have to buy $250. And the only thing, I could have bought another 10,497, but that's only got me to 125, and I still have to get more. So the only thing I could get, and I already have 3 10,497s, I don't need another one. So the only thing I could get that day was Optimus. The only thing that was on the shelves in their entirety that would get me to that. I mean, I could have bought a box of minifigs, But I thought, I love the fact that they're releasing CMFs. I love the fact that the Lego company is making all these niche sets for people who are interested in niche sets. The bouquets, the flower sets, fantastic. Not for me, but for other people. And I have friends who absolutely adore those sets, and I'm very happy for them. So I bought Optimus Prime, and he sits in a box, and because I am mildly interested in Optimus Prime. But at this point, I'm not interested enough to open a box. It's my first box that I have in my collection. This is going to be a thing. I mean, I got tons of these boxes that are unopened, right? Because we just acquire these things every time we go. We buy a set and bring it home. So I got lots of these, but I can open these anytime, and I wouldn't just sort it into the collection and never build it. Got this one in New York City a few weeks back. We went to New York City between Christmas and New Year's for the day. It was great. Loved it. So yeah, I had to buy a taxi. So, got this guy. I don't even know how I got this guy, but I got this guy. Right. But those are just little boxes that buy a box and maybe build a set or sort it into collection, whatever. But Optimus, I'm not going to sort it into the collection. Are you kidding? Not a chance. But I don't want to build them right now. To be said. So I don't have a lot of unopened boxes in my collection, except for things I haven't got around to sorting into the collection yet. But Optimus is going to be one of those boxes that is going to sit there until maybe the summer, or maybe even longer. And I'm going to say, no, I feel like building him. And I have a place to put him. Because right now I don't have any place. Like the one tangent I'm going to get into, Franz presents, what's your biggest brick? What is my biggest brick? This guy. What's my single biggest brick? I can't, off the top of my head, I don't know anything bigger than this guy. And of course I got dozens of these. 32 by 30, 48 by 48 base plates. But sorry, I actually, because if you're asking, Orange, I actually, because I'm old enough, I have the 50 by 50 base plates. So to talk about that further really quick, I had a stack of probably a dozen 50 by 50 base plates that I did not want to cut up because they were 50 by 50. Because when I was a kid, it was pre 32 by 32s and 48 by 48s. Mom would buy us the 50 by 50 so we could build our little villages and whatever else is on them. So for a while there in 1974, 1975, 1976, we got 2 or 3 a year for birthdays or Christmas. Every time we got a Lego set, we got a 50 by 50 base plate because they were like $7 in the store, whatever they were. So I had, and then when I started buying used lots, I got lots of 50 by 50 base plates. One of the first couple brick fets that we did, the brick convention in Ontario here in Toronto, my friend Andre, who's really hardcore into classic sets pre-1975, he's building all these things from like the waffle plates and all that stuff, the ESO stations and all that stuff. And I have a stack of 50 by 50s at home that I will never use because, again, when I started doing my train layouts, they all had to work with the 32 by 32 crater plates and landing pads. So the 50 by 50s don't work with that. And people suggested, well, cut them then. I go, I am not gonna cut a 50 by 50. Now, I cut lots of 48 by 48s, and some people were offended with that because the old gray, light gray 48 by 48s, you can't get them anymore. So, but I was doing shows and I needed 32 by 32 gray base plates that did not have a crater or a landing pad. I needed lots of those for the layouts. And so, and 16 by 32. So I cut up lots of 48 by 48. So at least a half a dozen because I had them. But this is my point of demarcation. I will not cut up a 50 by 50. But I go to Andre, I said, hey, dude, you're loving this classical waffle plate stuff and blah, blah, blah. Do you need 50 by 50s? Because that is your niche. The vintage stuff, according to me, this is not vintage. The pre-1975 is vintage to me. And he goes, I would love some. So I gave him. Just give him. I think I gave him 10. Here's 50 by 50s. I kept 2. Go on your merry. Never saw him again. So it's like what it is. But then since then, so I had 2 left. I kept 2, and then I have acquired more lots since BrickFet 2013, and some of them came with 50 by 50s because a lot of them are from my. That's what I look for in a lot. There's a classic light gray wing plate, or there's a classic space logo for like the 924, 918, 928. I'm gonna buy that lot, right? And with that lot would come other pieces from that era, which includes the 50 by 50. So I have 50 by 50. Now, do I have anything bigger than that? I don't think so. Let me go check over here. While I'm talking about it. I was going to spend tonight pulling parts for the 6991, but I'm going to talk about this instead. So right now I have 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Is that 4? Yeah, 5. Oh, that's 4. That's not supposed to be there. I have 4 50 by 50 base plates. So these are 50 by 50, and this is very messy, but this is a 40 by 48. And so you can see the 48 by 48 is 2 studs all the way around. Smaller than the 50 by 50 because they didn't have the concept of a system with the base plates back in the early 70s. They had the 32 by 32 came out in the town sets and the space sets in 1978, 1979. And then that's when they started releasing the 48 by 48 because 3 32 by 32s equals 2 of these. Works perfectly fine. So the 50 by 50s were phased out at that point. So I have 4 50 by 50s. Now, one of my, because I was over there grabbing my 48, so this is old gray, 48 by 48. I've cut these, not these ones, but other ones. But my favorite thing, well, I have so many favorite things in this room, it's hard to get. Transparent 48 by 48. I have 2 of these, and I say, "Aw!" And my friend Janie said, "How'd you get them?" Because they're very rare. They are very rare, and these things cost me $40. This is years ago. They might be back then. They were very rare. They might not be as rare now, but I think they were used for the builders, for the Lego company, for whatever, for displays and stuff. They were never available for the market. They might have changed since then, but I have 2 48 by 48s. I also got blue over there, and a whole bunch of light blay that I got cheap. I think we did a lug bulk one year, and we got the light blaze 48 by 48. They're still in shrink wrap because I don't build with new light blay overall. So it is what it is. I can't think of any piece that I have bigger than 50 by 50 base plates. I have an absolute stack. I would say 6 feet of shelf space taken up by 32 by 32 base plates, whether it's the road plates, crater plates, landing plates, parking lot plates, like the hospitals and the police stations, the little house ones with the little driveway that goes like that. I got a whole bunch of them in various colors, black, red, brown, lots of blue. The Pirates Island, I don't know how I got tons of those. The tan with the old west roads and stuff like that. The beach, I think Paradisia or Paradisa, whatever you want to call it. I got a few of those. The black landing plants from Blacktron 2, which are not my personal favorite, but I like them. So I got lots of 32 by 32s, and I have been trying to figure out how to distribute them to friends to get them off my shelf, because they're going to sit there. I am slowly thinking about the Mills standard now. I'm one of the last people to sign off on it, to jump on to that one, but I'm liking it. So I am trying to do the Mills, and therefore I will not be using 32 by 32 base plates anymore. So, but whatever, it is what it is. I love this hobby in its entirety. I love everything about this hobby that I've experienced thus far in my life. I am not a personal fan of like I want to collect it, of a lot of different themes and stuff over there. I don't have a lot of Star Wars. I really don't. But the Star Wars I do have, like I got this guy. He was at Valley Village in the original packaging, 1, 2, 3, 4, and the instructions. I mean, without it in the box, but I didn't care. So I got him, and I actually put them together, because why not? So, because I don't need these pieces in my collection. So I got him, and I said, this is kind of cute. so, and he stays on my desk. I like Star Wars. Star Trek's a way of life, but I like Star Wars, the show, the movies. And I watched everything up until Andor. I haven't seen Andor yet. I'm going to. And I like that, all of that. But for me, Star Trek is a way of life, so that is what it is. What is that? I guess it's supposed to be there. This is what fell off my shelf, unfortunately, and it's not going back together nicely. So, and this is my youth right here. I will say, and again, I'm not the expert on set numbers. These are the 300 series of sets that came out in the early 70s. And it's missing a piece because I used it on my car. And I got the truck over there. But I got this set for Christmas one year in my single digits. I don't know what the year this came out in. I want to say 75, probably somewhere around there. I got this set, and I loved this set. And I think these days there's something je ne sais quoi, something that is missing from the new sets that was here. Now, again, I don't think you could put this set on the market right now and expect lots of people to buy it, because it's very clunky, it's very kludgy, it's very, very 50 parts kind of thing. Because you buy the Joshes and the Speed Racers, so you buy them the Speed Racers, and they come with 300 parts, right? And this thing doesn't. This thing does not come with, I think, 50, 60 parts, and that's it. And I had so many adventures with this thing when I was a kid, right? And the steering I thought was just brilliant. And I talked about it in one of my videos on my YouTube channel, how fantastic the steering was on this guy, where it self-centers. And I thought that was just, as a 6, 7-year-old, this is brilliant, right? And so I love these sets. But I was too young. So here we go. I was too young. I didn't get this set. I got this set just a few years back in the used lot. And I had fun putting them together, And this used lot had really nice pieces. So whoever had this set, probably slightly older than me, probably gave it to his kids or whatever, and then it just ended up at the thrift store. Actually, this one might have come from a used lot that I got in Marketplace. So I always have to differentiate what I get from the thrift stores versus what I get off of Marketplace going to people's homes. And one of my things about going to people's homes and buying used lots is because I look for what I want, and I saw that used lot had lots of original pieces from the 70s, because the Lego logo on the brick and blah blah, and it's even the old school. If you look at it, it's the old school logo, not the one that came in the mid 70s, which has changed since the one we have now. So this is at least 2 iterations ago. So and the other thing is, I've been trying to rebuild all my childhood sets from when I was a kid. And I remember getting this guy. This was also lots of fun when I was a kid. And again, single digits when I got it. And so I have so many memories of being over at my uncle's place, just going across his kitchen floor with this thing and just having a great time. Because I got it that day, for my birthday, we went over to my uncle's place afterwards. And so I brought it with me and I built it there. And again, the unique things about these things is the translucent white axles, the 1x8L axles that came out before the black axles came out in Technic, and of course the 2x4 Technic brick, which I still to this day don't know why they discontinued it. Because this brick is awesome. So, but other than that, everything else in here is ubiquitous. These things were so ubiquitous back in the day. It's basic pieces. That's all it is. It's a couple slopes and basic pieces, but we had so much fun with it. Now, some of my friends took this stuff out to the sandbox, which is going to kill Lego very, very fast. It really is. it's your set. People can do what they want with their own pieces. For me, Lego never left the house, which I'll talk about in a sec. But one of my biggest memories, not this guy, but I'll talk about him in a sec. One of my biggest memories is this guy. I'll tell you, this thing was lots of adventures with me. I flew this around the house and even took him outside, and we went on adventures with this guy right here. The minifigs with no arms, no legs, no moving arms or legs. This pre 918, which is what my first classic space at, pre 918. This is the one set that stuck in my mind in my entire childhood as being the most influential for me having adventure time, shall we say, in my single digits with Lego. This guy, and just absolutely one of my favorite sets still to this day, and because it looks like it's supposed to, and that's awesome. And it's, again, just basic parts and pieces. It's not like they build now. Like, this set would not sell today. If you released this exact set, it would not sell today. Even if you put like real minifigs in here, it would not sell at all. I don't think. Now, this is also where I got my 6x16 or 20, whatever these base plates are, which I used a lot. So I love this set. But this guy I got in a used lot probably a dozen years ago, and I had no idea it existed. Actually, I went into Once Upon a Child. Sandy and I went into Once Upon a Child. And I saw this thing, this base plate thing, and then I go, that's not Lego. That's not Lego. And I couldn't read what was on the bag. And I go, wow. And I went back and I said, this actually does say Lego. This is a base plate. And then I remembered the old blue rails, that this is the fairy that came out with that set. And it has the solid stud on the 1x1 brick, which, again, prior to 1979, there are solid studs on the 1x1 round bricks. So if you're as old as me, you'll remember that. and the macaroni bricks do not have the reinforcements in there, because it's pre 2000. I think 2007, because I remember that being a huge threat on Lugnet when they decided to change the mold on the macaroni brick and make it reinforced to be in line with whatever they said they were being in line with. And I remember the huge uproar about that. And that was just a 1x2x2 macaroni brick. It was like massively huge. Again, if you're as old as me, you remember Lugnet. There was lots of huge threads on there about stuff like that. So I keep this guy together. I got him on at not Valley Village, the Once Upon a Child years ago. And I don't know if I can find it right now, but there are some 6x6s. Oh, here it is. And I don't know if you're going to be able to see this. I have no idea if the camera's going to pick this up. But let me just see if I can focus on here. Let's see, come on, focus. You will see that every stud on here is different. They have old graphics, new graphics, sideways, tilted, upside down. Because Samsonite Canada was not as meticulously involved in making things as accurate and perfect as possible as the molds that were over from Denmark. It is what it is, and I think it's because most of our sets came from Samsonite back then, right? Again, I got this set when I was a kid, but this is not the actual set that I got when I was a kid, because we threw out the boxes as soon as we got them. The boxes were irrelevant to us. But I got this at Valley Village 5 years ago for like $7 in the box, and all the pieces are inside. So, but you'll see right here, it says Samsonite, Stratford, Ontario, Canada. I got a tour of that place before they shut it down, and it's one of my favorite memories of this hobby. Again, I have so many favorite memories, but it's one of my favorite hobbies. When Jake, Pete, and I made Lego Wars, our movie. If you haven't heard about it, where have you been? No, nobody's heard about it. But we made a movie, and we sent it to Samsonite in Stratford, Ontario, because that's where the Lego marketing was. And they said, hey, Dave, come down for a tour. And I'm 17, 18, 19. So I already have my license. And back then, There was no graduate licensing. So I hopped in my car, went to Stratford, and they gave me a tour of the factory, making Lego bricks at the factory in Stratford, Ontario, at Samsonite. And then in 1986 or whatever, they lost the license, 1987, and Lego bought it back or whatever, and then they moved their office to Newmarket, which I never got a tour of, and then they shut down the factory altogether, and they moved to Buttonville to just have a Lego Canada office in Buttonville. It's kind of like in the strip mall. We've been there, so that's fun. So I do like now keeping things in boxes if I get something like this. So again, my friends know I like Lego, which is awesome. And so my friends say, and they work in thrift shops. And so when somebody brings in something like this, hey, I think my friend Dave would want this. So she calls me up and she says, Dave, I have set number 125. And I'm going, woohoo! And so it is all in here. It is, there it is, set 125. And the kids scribbled on the box, whoever had it back in the day. This is older than me, by the way. So there's not too many sets I have here that are older than me. But you know, the old gray 10 by 20s, the old windows, fantastic. It's just as you see, it's just the original bricks from back in the day. And so I keep this. Why I sort this in my collection? I don't have. These are basic bricks. I don't have to. So I keep it separated because it's nice to have separated. But my proudest, if we're going to talk about sets and boxes, my proudest possession is this guy. This guy is awesome. This was an eBay purchase. This is absolutely eBay back before people knew how expensive Lego could be. Lego in Italy, by the way, even though they had these things in North America and everywhere else, but this is a service pack that 1972. So if we open it up, there's the paperwork, and there's the pieces. This is a service pack. So they use this for a variety of different kind of service packs. This one is used for almost like trains, although it does come with all these tires, a lot of these tires, and the you know, the hinge plate, but the train pieces, like all the way down, but also the self-centering steering pieces, all in here. And the 2x4 wheel brick with the pole on it, so you can do the steering. But it also came with, because of the service pack, the old 4.5 volt lights. But even the old 4.5 volt doesn't have the hole in the middle like we had when we were kids. These are the old 4.5 volt. But also replacement lights for the 2x4 brick, the trans clear brick that lit up, which I think is awesome because I got a few of those too. Spare rubber tires, still in the original shrink wrap, or whatever you call it, plastic, for the 2x4 tires. Even the bigger, it's black unfortunately, it's not the gray, but even the bigger tires for the bigger wheels. The original bushings, not the gray bushings, but the red bushings. Translucent, we talked about this, translucent white axles, but also steel axles that would go into their 4.5 volt motors for the trains and the tractors and the tires. People are going to hate me for this. 12 volt tire rubber replacements. I keep on seeing on threads and Eurobricks and whatever else. Oh, where do you find replacements for 12 volt rubber, the tires for the engine? I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 of these. Yes, I have them. The service pack also contained arches. Sure. So keep them in there. 2x6 or 1x6, 1x8 arches. It's one of, and I keep it together, and I just leave it together. And again, this is the logo when I was a kid. This is the logo when I was very young. They changed it, I don't know, early 70s. And okay, let's talk about that. So you can see this logo and this logo are the same, basically. Yeah, absolutely the same. And then we get to, where's the set I just put down? This logo here. And you say, Dave, that's our logo now. But wait, You already see it. There's a little yellow sliver down between the L and the E. That's not there anymore. So they changed it to this guy. So this is the iteration now. This is the iteration when I was in my late single digits and teens and 20s. And I don't know what year they changed it from this guy to this guy. I don't know. I'm sure I could look it up. I just haven't yet. And then I said, this is the logo in the early 70s, 60s and early 70s. So they've changed the logo. And again, I have a whole book on it where they have the at least 12, I think, logos from the original 1932 or whatever it was to now. But those are the three that were in my lifetime, which I think is awesome. Let's go Legos. Woo! You should have shared in Lego. Nah, I will say this. I'm not a master builder by any stretch, straight up. And shares, whatever. I think it's still privately owned. It's still the family owned. When they started asking for Lego master builders, and this is pre the TV show. This is like my friend who is now in Australia being a judge down there, Robin, who is a master builder for Lego company. I am not at all. I'm an old school builder. This is, do I have something that right here that I can show you that I built myself? Because usually all my stuff's ready for the layout. Well, let's use this. This is my monorail. This is my space monorail that I built just ad hoc. But you can see, let's just show you this because this is, this is what I built. That's kind of people like. This is 5.5 feet tall. Sure, it's tall, but it is brick, all the way up. It's bricks on top of bricks. This is how I build. I do not build snot. I do not build fancy. I do not build greebled. I do not build detailed at all. I'm trying to get a little better on that. I think I should after a while. And people say, that looks so awesome. If I gave this to my friend Chris right now, or Mark, I just shipped it, or Dana, and I shipped it to them because I can. And hey guys, you take this skeleton framework and you go with it, they would make something stupendous out of it because they are new school builders. Like because when I built Winnie the Pooh, it's not a stud facing up really, and the Sesame Street and all that stuff. I look at how Lego does things now. Even the speed racers that Josh is always building, there's so much more detail in their set builds and so much more detail. Like right now, my friend Jeff's down there in Atlanta at Brick Fair Atlanta, whatever it's called, and they're sending pictures back, and it's just magnificent build, just gorgeously detailed, a lot of effort. I mean, this is effort, absolutely. I'm not disparaging me, but I am old school. I'm such an old school builder. I left my building techniques back in the 80s. That's where they stuck. I do try to get a little more fancier every once in a while, and I do it because whatever. But right now, that's never been my focus to add the greebled and the snot detailed on these things. It's just, there it is. There's the tower. It's working. It does the shows. I've always been the old school. The more they overthink the plumbing, the easier the stuff off the drain. Mr. Scott, thank you. But in the end, when I retire soon, I will possibly be rebuilding the entire layout from scratch and adding the details because I don't have the time. I have the patience. This whole room's sorted. That's lots of patience there. But my mental health. So this is Belle. I have a whole video on my YouTube channel I was going to upload. My mental health right now is utterly fantastic. I think it's because I've gotten to the point, I've never cared overall what other people thought. So let's walk down this path really, really quickly. Hopefully me with my tangents. When I was a kid, of course, as expected, all my friends had Lego, I had Lego. That's what happens, right? And then I started getting into then I hit 10, 11, 12. And the very last set my parents bought me, 1979, 1980. And then they stopped buying me Lego because I'm 12 or 13 at the time. You're too old for us to buy Lego for you. And I go, okay, well, that's fine. I was cutting grass. I was picking pears on the farm down the street. I was doing what I can, raking, whatever, catching chickens. Did it all. And making my own money because that's what we did back in the 80s. We were not allowed to sit around doing nothing all day. We actually worked throughout the summer. And so I had my own money. I had my own spending cash. And so when I went to the store, and I would ride my bike to the store, the Eastgate down the street, pretty far bike ride, I would buy my own Lego. And so from 1980 to 1995, I bought my own sets. I would say, and so I'm in high school, and I made the movie. Again, go look it up on YouTube, Lego Wars. It's on my YouTube channel. It's kind of way back uploaded 15 years ago. But anyway, and so I'm in high school, and I wear my passions on my sleeve. I don't try to hide. I'm not telling anybody. I was a Trekkie through like a seriously huge Star Trek geek. I was also a huge computer geek, and you think here's a Star Trek geek, computer geek. He's 16 years old. He's still buying Lego sets. You think that you would think that I was bullied? No. Not too much. I grew up in a small town. Everybody knew me. I was a Boy Scout. I was a Boy Scout for 25 years. So what had happened is that I had nobody else besides me kept up the Lego, like my friends Pete and whatever. But during my Boy Scout group, we went scuba diving. We got our dive licenses at 16 years old. We're buying cars. We're fixing up cars. So it wasn't like I was like a black rimmed glass geek with the tape on the side getting stuffed in the lockers. I had a lot of encouragement from family and friends to do what I want as long as I'm not harming anybody else. And that's the key thing. As long as I'm not harming anybody else, Dave, you're a good kid to hang around. I've been told this my entire life. Dave, you're a good guy to hang around. You're a nice guy. Nice guy. And so I had support because my mom's an artist. Well, my mom's gone now, but she was an artist, and she was very, very considerate of people exploring their artistic endeavors. And this is right here, a huge part of my artistic endeavors. But I have a full-fledged wood shop out there that my dad taught me how to use a skill saw at the age of 8. And so I never considered it to be detrimental to my mental health to like the stuff I liked, because I was never told that would be a detriment to my health. And nobody around me, we broadcasted at lunchtime in the high school, Lego Wars. You pay 25 cents to get in the AV room. We were making money for the student council, and because I was on the student council that year. And so I said, hey, we could play my movie at lunchtime, and pay 25 cents to get it. And the teachers were walking, oh, Dave, you made, and other kids, like you're always going to have the jackasses, like straight up, there's always going to be jackasses out there. Oh, look at Kelly, she's playing with like Lego. Go screw yourself. I'm not going to see you in 3 years. I have enough sense of self and appreciation of self to not worry about what other people think. I never felt peer pressure, even if it was there, although it wasn't in my case a lot. There was some jackasses, and there's always going to be jackasses. But the people who you hang around, and then you get in your 20s and 30s and 40s. Now, on the Bell Let's Talk thing, mental health. In a grand scope, people go through waves of depressions and bipolar. Some people have bipolar, blah, blah, blah. I found, for me, I got a lot more depressed in my teens and my 20s, just growing pains and whatever else and stuff like that, that I never... back then, it's the 80s, and you suck it up and you move on. And I'm not saying that's a good way of doing it, because it isn't. Because you should talk to somebody. But I also had the flip side where I like who I am, and people out there liked who I was and am. And so my time will come. My dating experiences in my 20s was, I won't say deplorable, but it was like, date this person for a few weeks, and then that person for a few weeks, and then have months and whatever in between. That's what it was. I wasn't that interested in settling down. I'm doing what I wanted to do as a computer geek. I got a job in working computers. making money, bought my own house, set up my own wood shop, got all my tools from before and set up my own wood shop and brought my Lego here and blah, blah, blah. And I just had my life the way I wanted it. And so I was secure enough in who I am and what I wanted from my life to not jump at, I'm not going to get, I have to jump at whoever's mildly interested in me, jump at it. No. If I want to be with you and you want to be with me, then let's be together. If you don't want to be with me, let me know. We'll move on. My sense of securing myself and who I am has always been there, even when I was a kid. So my mental health is fine. And the older I get, and this is even building on that, the really less I care about what other people think. As long as I'm not harming anybody, as long as I'm comfortable in my own skin. I don't have any airs. I don't have any airs about me that I have to put on a show or keep up with the Joneses, or have to prove myself to other people. And I think that's a lot of where mental health shows up, is that you're always in competition with other people. I'm in competition with nobody. I am absolutely not in competition with anybody on the planet. People can do whatever they want. It doesn't affect me. Now, there are stresses. Absolutely. We had jackass neighbors for 10 years. That was bad. There was a layoff at Montreal plant, 5,000 people. Lego. I don't remember, but there was an actual Montreal plant? I don't even remember that. That's sad. I remember when I was a kid, it was Stratford, Ontario for all of Canada. Lego Canada was in Stratford, and all the boxes said that. And they produced basic brick, and they got sets from Denmark, and they distributed, because I'm not absolutely certain on this, but Samsonite Canada had the contract before Samsonite USA. North America, Lego was available in Canada before it was available in the US. And that's the 60s. And then into the 70s, it was in Samsonite Canada, and then Enfield, Connecticut. No, it wasn't even Enfield at the time. It was somewhere in Colorado, I think, and they moved to Enfield. But Stratford was producing brick. But as I said, for sets like this, but not sets like from the 918 that I just had down here, right? So I don't remember the Lego Montreal. I mean, I have my friend David St. Cyr, who's from Montreal. He could probably clue me into that. I had no idea. So that might be something. I gotta say Lego fast. Lego. 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 And again, if you're as old as I am and you remember Lugnet and the huge discussions about how to say Lego, it's supposed to be Lego bricks and Lego company and Lego sets and whatever, because Lego is the adjective to describe what you're talking about. Lego bricks. You don't say Legos. The Legos was verboten. You're not allowed to say Legos. That started. I heard of that when I was in my 30s and 40s, and I've been calling them Legos since I was a kid. All my friends called them Legos since we were kids. I love the company. I'm supporting the company every way I can. But I don't get paid by the company, and I don't want to be paid by the company. And they cannot tell me what to call it. Just like, and here's something, I'm always going to call it the Sky Dome. Screw you, Rogers. It's the Sky Dome. So a company is not going to tell me what to call a landmark in Toronto. And I say Toronto, by the way, because I don't live in Toronto. If you lived in Toronto, it'd be Toronto. Hey, we're going to Toronto. No, it's Toronto. So, and the thing is that I screw up Hamilton all the time. I live in Hamilton. It's Hamilton. Like, people skip letters. So I say Toronto, which always distinguishes me from people who live in Toronto. The big city. 5,000 people, Legos, it's low, it's funny. I have to look that up. It's a funny. Thanks, Beats Pop. So there are so many things. Oh, so therapy, by the way. One of the things that has kept me sane and mentally stable is this hobby. Straight up. When you're down here and back in my other places in the room where Lego is, you sort, you build, you occupy your mind with spatial distances and blah blah blah. It's just like woodworking overall, except a lot easier. And if you make a mistake, you take it apart instead of like having to go buy new wood. I love building when the hands and the head are working together for something and you have an idea. So let's just talk about this really quick. This was an evolution of, I'm going to get rid of some of this stuff. My desk is filling up. This was an evolution of, so we started doing Lego shows when I hit RTL Toronto. The original Lego group in Toronto. And the original shows we did were robot competitions because we were heavy hardcore into RCX. So we're talking 2000, 2001. And that's when I discovered RTL Toronto. And so RTL 3 was their first competition that I went to. And then we were just doing robot competitions publicly. And we would rent the library at Lillian H. Smith or wherever else. And we would show up and we'd do a robot competition for the Saturday. Fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And people, we would advertise it and people would show up. And the RCXs collecting blocks or stacking this or doing that, whatever competition we had come up with. And the public loved it. They absolutely loved it. So that was my first experience on the other side of the rope in a convention and or show. I would go to train shows, the model train shows. I would go to hobby shows. I would go to, and I'd always be the person walking around. But all of a sudden, now I'm on the other side of the rope. I'm actually building a robot. That's part of the show. And then I think it was my friend Jeff who said we should do a train layout, like a train show. And so we rented another room and we showed up with a train layout, and that was fun. That was straight up was fun. Because it's static-ish, because just competitions are like, yay, you get everybody excited about it. But this is a static layout. But we've all been to train shows. I would hope all of us have been to train shows. I love train shows. I've been going to train shows since I was 5 or 6 years old. And so we did that with 2 or 3. And then our friend Alan Bedford, good guy, fantastic guy, he says, I am doing a Lego display for the hobby show in Toronto. And I'm going, and then by this time there's already conventions like Brick Fest in Virginia, and I already been to one 2004. I went to the one in Virginia, but they already done 3 or 4 years of brick conventions, and as Lego conventions were starting to catch on. So, but I hadn't been to anyone until the one in Brick Fest 2004. But anyway, so all of a sudden we're at the hobby show. And that was, my mind's blown now. Like, it's absolutely blown because we're across the aisle from the mechanical guys who are building these wonderful sculptures out of mechanical pieces. And down the corner there's the RC guys and the model airplane guys and the boat guys. They built the pond in the International Center, and they had the RC boats going. And so it was a conglomeration of all these people who had all these different hobbies. And there's quilting, and there's like painting, and there's fishing, like everything was there, hobby show. And there's a lot of vendors buying and selling stuff. So we did that, and then people were just walking up constantly all the time. It was utterly fantastic. It was one of my favorite things. And then we did a few hobby shows in a row. We did 2 or 3 hobby shows in a row. And then at one of the hobby shows, a guy named Doug, really nice guy, Doug and Frank, came to us and says, we do the Toy Train and Doll Show in the same building, like in spring or fall, either the Christmas train show or the spring train show. And he said, do you want to come along? And so he liaised with me, and I said, sure. And I talked to my Lego buddies, and I said, hey, Frank and Doug are willing to give us a 40 by 40 area at their train show. We can bring whatever we want. And so we had trains, we had space, we had designs, we had models of whatever, and sculptures of Lego. All my Lego buddies would show up, and we had a great blast weekend, Friday to Sunday, and we did that dozens of times. 2 or 3 a year. So my friend Greg Highland shows up at one of these shows. This is like 2007 now. 2006, 2007. He shows up at one of our shows to bring a display because we love Greg Highland. Great guy, comic book guy. And he shows up and he brings a classic space layout. Mind blown. Like up until then, this is odd for me. Up until then, I had no concept that I could bring a classic space layout to a show. Now, my whole basement, I had a layout set up on the ping pong table, like an entire space layout, a diorama of classic space. All my class, because I love classic space. Period. I love classic space since I was 10 or 11. But at the public shows, it was either the robots or the trains, because that's what everybody else was talking about and doing. And yeah, when we do the hobby shows or whatever, people bring their little brick-built cat or whatever, some artistic piece or whatever else, and that's great. This is fantastic. Or some Technic gizmo, this pre-GVC, and then but Greg Hyland brings a classic space layout. I'm going, duh, I could do this easily. Like look, easy, easy for me to do. And so in 2007, I started bringing a classic space layout to the show, and the very first one was just 3 tables with a black tablecloth on top, 1 loop of monorail, and a whole bunch of classic space sets, just kind of thrown up onto the base plates. That was it. And people loved it. Like I had a couple Galaxy Explorers in there, and a couple wheeled vehicles in there, like all stock sets. And so Jeff and I get together, let's make this thing bigger. So from 2007 to 2011, Jeff and I just kept on adding and taking away and modifying. And I think our biggest layout that we did, probably in 2010 or 2009, we did 12.5 by 12.5 foot classic space layout. It was awesome. It took us 2 days to set up because you have to put all the monorail. We had 6 different integrated monorail loops in there. And then the stanchions and the supports and the buildings and blah, blah, blah. It took us a long time to get that set up. And we did months of design on the track designer beforehand and blah, blah, blah. And, but we had fun, but it was just too long. And I'm noticing that as the layouts got bigger, it was just too long to set up. And so I said, I want to cut that down. I want to cut that down. So for BrickFet 2011, I reduced the size of the layout to like 7.5 by 10. And had all the stuff that we liked. And I had a little building, my own little building, that was about 2 stories tall, which was, you can see this little piece right here. So this is 2 stories. There's 1 story and there's 2 stories. And I had 2 landing pads on each side. So the original part of this tower was in my first designed layout, not just a random layout. And I said, that's cute, that's fun. 2000 whatever, and then after that, the next layout, I got a little taller, right, and then I got a little taller, right, and then it kind of went up from there. But then Janie says, hey, we're gonna have a BrickFet convention, like a Lego convention in Toronto, and I said, well, I have to bring something spectacular for that. And so I went home and designed for 6-7 months and rebuilt, and I got it up to here for BrickFet. Now the landing pads were not like this one. They were just like just simple landing pads with like wing plates for the edges. And that went over spectacularly well. I said, this is awesome. So, and so from 2011 to maybe pre-COVID, this was kind of what I was, and of course the tower, so to really talk about the tower for really quick. Do I work in Hamilton? No, I work in Oakville. Unfortunately, I have to drive in Oakville every day. And drive home from Oakville every day. It's the furthest east I've ever had to go. Every IT job I've had has been progressively farther and farther away. So that's sad, whatever. I work, so I drive in Oakville Monday to Friday, 8:30 to 4:30. And I come home and I sit in my living room. So I will say that and again, I always tell this story. So I did not know the tower was going to look like this when I first started, when I just had this one piece at the bottom. I did not know the tower was going to look like this. But I knew it wasn't finished when I built this little piece. I said, it's not right. It doesn't look right. It's not good enough. It's not good enough. And even went up to here. It's not, people, oh, that's stupendous, Dave. That's so gorgeous. That's perfect. I go, no, it's not right. And so I kept on modifying and changing, so every single show was bigger, more, whatever. And until it actually went from all the way up here down to the bottom, and then so after I got it together, I stepped back and I said, oh, the tower's done. So this is iterations. This is like a dozen iterations to get to this point. And so I did a couple shows here and there, and I changed it. And I said, and so it all of a sudden hit me, up until this point, It wasn't done, but I didn't know what done meant until it got to this point. So that's one of those little quirks of life. Now, again, not to say that this tower hasn't been rebuilt since then, because it has, because I had to wire the whole thing, put the lights in it and whatever. And you can go look at my videos on YouTube, but because it lights up, because you have to have that. And there's more monorail loops, which is fine. But and so I always also say this: the inspiration, CN Tower straight up, because we talked about Toronto. I was 1976. I was almost 10, and they were building the CN Tower, and all of us were doing reports on it and studying it and whatever. We were 9 or 10 years old and talking about it, and we're doing it for school projects, whatever, because it was the biggest thing in Canada at the time that we're building the CN Tower. It's going to be the world's tallest tower, blah, blah, blah. It was massively huge. It was in the papers every day and the news every night. Oh, we got to this point, and whatever. And so the CN Tower has always been, for me, one of the greatest things that Canada's ever did, even though you look at it now, it's kind of meh. Now, I've been in it a few times. So, but the CN Tower is awesome. It still is awesome. And again, forget all the other dynamics. It's a kind of a cute thing. So that was always in my mind, the CN Tower. The other thing that was always in my mind is, again, to talk about Star Wars, is and again, I like Star Wars. The scene in, again, the original, not the redone and re-edited and CGI'd, but the original Empire Strikes Back, of course, I saw in the theater a bunch of times. And when they came into Cloud City, you had the little red pods guiding Luke Skywalker down and the Millennium Falcon down, and the Millennium Falcon lands on that pad. And you know that there's nothing underneath that pad holding the Millennium Falcon up, and you have the walkway to the, Cloud City. Mind blown. Like, I love science fiction. I seen 2001. I seen Battle Beyond the Stars. I love science fiction, and I love the idea of having these landing pads that are so far off the core building, and they're hanging out in Nowheresville, and they are supported, and they have that. And so I had to have something like that in this tower. That was a criteria for me, is to have like an Empire Strikes Back idea of the landing pads of Cloud City ish, because you can't do that. Well, you can. And so this was one of the toughest iterations, is to get these 4 landing pads attached to the building, and how far out they're going to be and how close they're going to be. So these 4 landing pads have changed size, shape, and distance from the main tower over the years until I settled on this. And so they're far enough to make it look like Empire Strikes Back. But that inspired me. The other thing that was a direct inspiration, again, there's so many wonderful Lego builders out there that I followed back in Lugnet days. And one of the guys' name is Peter Reed. And Peter Reed, you might not know, or you may know, he's the guy that made this. He's a classic space guru. So, and he did a lot of micro builds, like a ton of micro builds back in the day. And there is a Odessa, I think it's Odessa building. I have to look it up again, the actual name for it. But he built a micro tower, classic space tower. And so you had micro spaceships flying off the landing pads. And he posted this on Lugnet. And the second I saw it, I said, that's gorgeous. And everything he built was gorgeous, but that specifically was gorgeous. And I said, in my head, and I think I even replied to that thread on Lugnet. I can't remember. Let's kind of go find it. Somebody should build that minifig scale. And it was, like, I think the tower was this tall in micro scale. Like, his little ships were this big, and the tower's this big, and it had landing pads coming off it 2/3 of the way up. And it had a command center on the top with all these beautiful greebles. Like, Peter Reed can do greebles like nobody else. And so, absolutely adorable. And I said, somebody should build that in minifig scale. I said, I'm going to build a minifig scale. I'm going to build a minifig scale. Now, again, so, and I told Peter Reed that I'm going to build something akin to his tower in minifig scale. And so it wasn't blue, it was dark gray. His was dark gray. Since mine's classic space, because his wasn't classic space, it was a space layout, whatever. It was micro build. But Peter Reed was a direct inspiration of this tower. and I love him for it. And it even got to the point where my buddy Joe Mino, fantastic guy in the Lego community, who publishes Brick Journal, and if you don't know it, you find it. It's the best magazine for Lego fans. Joe Mino called me up 2 or 3 years ago, and he says, "Dave, can you do a spread, like a 3 or 4 pages of your space layout? I think people would be interested in it." Again, and I'm going 3 or 4 years ago, like people are building such sophisticated and greebled and snotted and all that stuff using no more basic brick, and I'm going, nobody's going to be interested in my tower. Nobody's going to be interested in my layout because it is old school. If you ever get to a show that I'm at and you look at it, and I'm not again, I love it. I love my layout, and people love, and there's no fault with my layout. It's just I do not build new way, build the old way. And so Joe, and he said, no, people love it. Trust me. So I spent a lot of time talking about the inspirations of Empire Strikes Back, blah, 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 TN Tower. Yeah. And then talk about the rest of the layout, too, because there's more to it than just the tower. There's a whole layout there. Lots of monorail, 4 loops, fantastic. And so Joe, and I said, I want to talk about Peter Reed in the article, because he was a direct inspiration, and he's part of the community. So I sent an email to Peter. I said, Peter, I'd like to use that picture of Onassis base and explain how that relates to this guy in my article. And he says, absolutely, Dave. So that's why I love this community, by the way. And so if you look in Brick Journal, and I don't know if I have it here, I wasn't expecting this to go off on these tangents. I can't find it. I have a paperwork bin somewhere. And so I have a direct, I have pictures of Peter Reed's Onassis base, and why it inspired me and how much my appreciation of Peter Reed is in the article, because Lego fans build on what other Lego fans have done, straight up. It is such, I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So the fan community is such, overall, in my experience, the fan community is such a loving, caring, compassionate community. Overall, there are deficiencies in some places, but overall, that we help others, and we are there for others. And I noticed way back in LugNet, as somebody comes up with an idea, like just talk about the GBCs for a sec. The Great Ball Contraptions that Steve Hasenplug, again, friend, love the guy, came up with. And he came up with it. And he says, here, community, run with it, see what you do. And look how big the GBCs are in the world right now. One guy came up with an idea. I think his whole club came up with the idea, and they did it first. Fantastic. And then we all love it, and we all go through it. The Moonbase, Chris and Mark, the Moonbase stuff, fantastic. Now, Moonbase didn't catch on nearly as much as the GBCs, and for obvious reasons, but I love Moonbase. I adore Moonbase, and I adore Chris and Mark. All that stuff. Neo Classic Space, that was a huge thing back in LugNet. Neo Classic Space was, again, I love LugNet. I love LugNet, Susan Todd. It was such a good time to be around. And so bringing it right back to the Lego company, allowing the free thought of people running with the hobby. We can get into the details that the Lego company was almost bankrupt. They were in the red in the late 90s because they could not produce anything worthy of me buying off the shelf or anything on the shelf. They were getting their butts kicked by all the other toy manufacturers that were video games and getting the kids away from the computers, away from Lego. And then they came out with 2 things, Bionicle and Star Wars. The 2 things that completely changed, saved them and completely changed how they did things. And I'm supporting that. And so, I mean, the RCX came out in 98. I bought that. Anyway, so talking about the RCX itself. So the RCX showed up in 1998, 1999. I bought one off the shelf. I didn't even know what it was. I walked into the store, and again, I hadn't bought too much new Lego at the time. But I saw the RCX sitting there, $300, yoink, right in the shopping cart, drive home, and take it out of the box. And this is just the best thing ever. I can build robots. I had built my own Commodore 64 interface decades before. that liaised with the 4.5 volt Lego motors, and I was building my own little robots that had to be controlled by the Commodore 64. But this was so much better. And so that's when I went online and actually specifically looked at trying to find Lego information about the RCX. And that's how I found LugNet. That's how I found RTL Toronto, blah, blah, blah. So, but at that time, there was a lot of people throughout the world posting on LugNet. Oh, I hacked the ROM on the RCX. I have a better ROM now. I have a better firmware on it, and I have a better programming language for it. Here's how you can make your own sensors for it, your own rotation sensors, your own light sensors, your own sound sensors, all that stuff. People were hacking the brick left, right, and center, the RCX, back in the 90s and the 2000s. I still have a book here that I always keep when I get into programming. Brick Journal, found it. I'll show you in a sec. But Mark Riley, fantastic guy. So Mark Riley's LDCC. So, but David Baum's NQC, all that stuff, programming languages for the RCX, which then went on to be programming language for the NXT and I believe also the EV3, the third-party stuff. Now, at the same time in the world, Sony came out, I think it was Sony, it came out with the stupid little walking dog. Our computer-controlled dog that you can, download the software from Sony and you can program the dog to do various things. And they put stringent guidelines, stringent lockdown. You could not have third-party software, and this is back before apps in the phone. This is people actually reverse engineering software to liaise or communicate with these things. And Sony locked it down. They said, no, you consumer are not allowed to make any modifications that we don't specifically authorize. And they locked it down. The Lego company had a decision to make because there is a lot of hacking out there in the world. New software, new firmware, new programming languages, new all this stuff, new sensors that they hadn't produced yet. And they said, go to it. Go to it. Knock yourselves out, Lego fans. You have all the fun you want. Here's the RCX, hack away. Here's our software, make your new software. Have your robot competitions. We did. And we bought thousands of the RCX. And again, that didn't save the company because the RCX was expensive. It was like a niche market. But we had so much fun, and the Lego company says, we're about play. We're about letting the people do what they want with it, as long as it wasn't illegal and whatever. Knock yourselves out, and we did. we ran with it, and it was such a fine. And what would happen is if somebody unlocked that would post, "Hey guys, I got this Unicode or whatever to this point, and I can make the RCX do X." And somebody else says, "Oh, I can help you with that," and they get into the bit codes and whatever. I'm not a programming guy, but they go, and it just was fluid. It was natural. It was fantastic. And the Lego company completely endorsed it. We had so much fun back then. And then we had the competitions, the robot competitions. And look what I did with the RCX. And look what I can do over here with the RCX and blah, blah. And I'm not saying that led to FLL, First Lego League, and all the robot competitions that schools were doing, blah, blah, blah. But it was a huge contributor because it wasn't locked down. It was very, very dynamic, and it was allowed to be dynamic and to be growth upon, and all of a sudden we get better understanding and better codes and better firmwares and blah, blah, blah. And then we, as I say, Mark Riley built our LDCC, Lego Digital Command Center, command and control that they use for train layouts. And so I used that a lot because it was a lot easier to control 17 motors from one RCX than just the 3. And like all that stuff. And it was such a wonderful time back then. I've gone on a lot, but anyway, so really, really quick, I've got myself published a few times in my life. So this is the Brick Journal, January 2021, and we go here, and we get to see my ugly mug. So there's the layout as it basically sits now. I don't change it too much, just I have more details now because really, really quick. I built wooden boxes to store the layout and to transport the layout. I have 8 boxes to store and transfer, and then the 8 boxes become the basis to put the layout on. It becomes the tabletop because I'm getting older. The 12 and a half by 12 and a half, I said it took us 2 days to set up. overall, and then set up a whole day, and then the next day while the show's going, we're still putting it together. It's not good. And so I made a determination half a dozen years ago that my layout setup at a show has to be under 2 hours, because it would always take me over 2 hours to set up. And I'm going, how do I get the layout to be under 2 hours to set up? And so I built modules, and one of the things, I look at what takes the longest. So, for example, on this layout right here, you can't count, but there's 150 pieces of monorail track in this layout. 4 different loops, but there's 150 pieces of monorail track. Curves, straight, switches, whatever, it doesn't matter. Ramps, 150 pieces. And to put 150 pieces of monorail together takes time. It really does. So I said, if we keep like a section of the track together, like maybe like what, because you can see these are loops over here. These are almost full loops here. If we just keep those 4 pieces together, I don't have to put them together to show. Hey, brilliant, Dave. Ding, light in the head. Like, brilliant. I can keep for a loop of monorail. I usually have a circle on the floor. A circle of monorail together, so I don't have to put those 4 pieces together at a show. So now all of a sudden, I'm not putting 150 pieces of monorail together. I'm putting 146 pieces of monorail together. So brilliant, Dave. So anyway, and so I had to design and figure out which pieces I could keep together and which pieces had to come apart. And so instead of 150 pieces of monorail track I have to put together, I have 50 combined pieces of monorail. So that's 1/3 the time, or 2/3. I've removed 2/3 of the time to put the monorail track together. And it's a lot easier now to put bigger pieces of monorail track, 3 or 4 pieces of monorail track, with another 3 or 4 pieces than each individual piece. So that saves a ton of time. So that was a huge time saving by reducing the number of pieces of monorail track I've put together, just by leaving them together. And so just on the boots on the ground, the pieces that stay together, the monorail pieces, they're connected with gray 1x4s. And the pieces that come apart are connected with blue 1x4 tiles. So I can tell Josh and my wife, whatever, just take off all the blue tiles and I have all the pieces. And then they all in the box. And so that was fantastically awesome. The other thing that was taking up a lot of time straight up was just putting the base plates down. Because you see the base plates, there's 9 across here and there's 6 across there. That's 54 base plates. And so you have to put them down. And then you have to put the 2x2 plate to hold them all together. And if they're not perfect, then you're wrestling with them. I said, that takes so much time to put 54 base plates down to make sure they're in the right spot. And and you're looking at, I have a, this is the Bible for the layout, by the way. So there it is. That's an old one. But anyway, well, you just go with this. So you have to put all these base plates down, and they have to be situated the right way, right? Because of buildings and whatever. It's just a huge pain in the butt. So I said, what if, hypothetically speaking, what if I tape the base plates to a piece of plywood? so double face tape, and I taped them to a piece of plywood. And so instead of 54 base plates I'm putting out, I put 9 modules out. They're not the old standard train 2.5 feet by 2.5 feet, or 30 inches by 30 inches. They are 30 inches by 20 inches because they have to fit in the box. So there's 9 of them. And the base plates are taped, double face taped. I can take them off. I didn't ruin the base plates. But now I'm just putting out 9 modules. Boom, 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 boom. Not even a minute. Done. Instead of like a half an hour putting all the base plates down, 9 minutes or like 30 seconds, not even a minute. The other thing I wanted to do, which takes the time, is the details on the actual base plates, like the guys walking around, the pips for the landing pads, the guys and the people marching, whatever, like that takes time. And so what I did is the wooden boxes that store this thing, I left 2 inches between each module, so I can leave the minifigs right on the base plates, so I don't have to detail that. I just pull out the three base plates by 2 base plates, and I just drop it down. The guys are on there, the pips are on there, the sidewalks are on there, the doodads and the gizmos are on there. Done. So I don't have to set that up anymore. That took a lot of time off my plate to set it up. So right now, this layout, as it is, if no interruptions, by the way, because this is something that Jenny always had a problem with. If I'm setting up this layout, under 2 hours. I did it at Anime North, which we'll talk about in a sec. I did this layout at Anime North. It was under an hour and a half to set up. Nobody bugged me. All the parts and pieces. I had all the room in the world around it. And I just, methodical, not fast, not rushing it, but methodical. Boom, boom, boom. Hour and a half. Trains were moving around. It was fantastic. It was my favorite setup. It was so easy. And taking down under an hour, which never happened before. So that was fantastic. So this is my criteria now. Whatever I add to this layout now, because I keep on that, maybe I want to add this little building here, or moon-based corridors, which I've now added. Whatever I add to this layout now, because it's 5 feet by 7.5 feet, cannot make the setup time go past 2 hours. That's my cutoff, because I also realized now, the 12.5 by 12.5, 2 days, but even the 7 by 18 that we did at BrickFet. If I'm so busy with a big layout, then I'm babysitting the layout, because it's so big, things are going to go wrong. The bigger the layout, the more things are going to go wrong. And I'd rather be at a show enjoying the show. Like this thing at the Anime North and the few shows I've done since then, I've set and forget, basically. Every once in a while, a kid will, I'm trying to figure out where I'm going to get stanchions and stuff to keep the kids from pushing the train off or moving the minifigs around. And I have stories about that. But other than that, I don't have to babysit. It's small enough, and I can look from a distance. Oh, yeah, that train's not moving anymore. And I go figure out why. And so I find it a lot easier to keep it small and contained than the big sprawling that we used to do. And again, the big sprawling is great for people visual, because it's like, we did one that was 18 feet long once. It was 7.5 feet deep and 18 feet long. Janie said, here's your floor space, Dave. Knock yourself out. So I just kept on throwing out base plates and landing pads and the monorail. Like, it was a huge, and I loved it. I loved looking at it. But it was like all day to set up. And then taking it down, it's like, oh my goodness! Like, I'm tired after a show. I don't want the time. So it's like, so anyway. And here's my ugly mugshot of one of my robots from my old robot competitions from RTL Toronto. And let's look at Peter Reed's thing. So this is Peter Reed's right there. I made it sure it's big and bright. It says, let's get it right. Peter Reed's Onyasis, Onyasis landing platform. Complete direct inspiration. And over here we have some of our old layouts that we did. And on this one you can see the original building being 2 stories tall with the 2 landing pads on it. That's how this tower started. And over here you just have some over the details of me changing it. I did go on to, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is it lit up. I mean, I love that. I think it's fun. And some Art Deco shots over here. There's a Deco shot that I could take in my house. But this is what I'm talking about. So this is one of my wooden boxes. So I started this about 5 years ago, pre-COVID. But I started building wooden boxes, and they just hold the entire building. Because when I used to transport the layout, it was either in cardboard boxes or sitting freehold in the back of the van. And invariably, you get to the show and it's busted, which takes time to fix. So it's like, oh man, I'm so tired of things being busted all the time. And I'd be sitting there trying to fix a building. And again, it's sitting there and it's already built. Like, building it from scratch would almost be faster than trying to fix it afterwards. Like, it's, oh my goodness. And then trying to figure out what pieces go. And you always have pieces left over and blah, blah, blah. So ever since I got the wooden boxes, overall, things haven't got broken. Now, there are some things that do get broken, and I am working on solutions for that. Because again, if it's broken, it takes time to fix before you can put a layout. And so what I do now, because again, all the vehicles and the spaceships would just be in a Ziploc. So now I have foam on a drawer inside one of these boxes, and all my guys, all my space guys, all my spaceships are in foam, so they don't move around now. They don't break. It's fantastic. It takes so little time now. Now again, all this, it adds airspace to the boxes, so all of a sudden you cannot take as much. Straight up, I fully understand. And if you want to take more, you have to build more boxes. But right now, I have 8 boxes for square ones like this. This guy here, it's 2.5 by 2.5 by 2.5 basically, and it takes all the buildings. And I have 4 boxes that are 2.5, or sorry, it's not 2.5. It's 20 inches by 20 inches, 20 by 20 by 20. This is 20 by 30 by 20, because this is also the same size as the modules for the base plates. And so this one has all the monorail track. I have four of these monorail track spaceships. All the miscellaneous pieces that have to be added at the end, blah blah blah. I also went into some detail. This is my friend Callum taking a picture of me putting the top on. The top is 5.5 feet. The top radar dish is 5.5 feet from the base plates, which is big enough. And this is a very nice far shot from this. And you got some details here, details there. And then, some detail shot. I always like that shot. But then I get into, on this page, monorails. And so this is here. I don't know if you can see it nicely. There's a big, giant Classic Space logo carved into 15 6x5 yellow glass, transparent yellow glass that goes in those big, huge 6x5 window frames. Those are not the original yellow glass. I kept those separate. This is my friend Chris, and you can go to jealouspanda.com, and he can cut whatever glass for whatever window at most colors. And then if you ask him nicely, and he'll charge you for it, you can have whatever you want engraved into that glass. So he cuts and engraves at the same time. And I did talk a little bit about the different monorails that I created over the years. So I already shown you this one. And so you get into monorails that is just not a train motor and then the back train, like you have them 4 or 5 long. Pretty easy to do. You don't have to do any actual modification of bricks. But if you get into this kind of stuff, you have to modify some bricks. This is one of my favorite trains. It's just 6x6s all the way around. You do have to cut some pieces. So I talked about that. Because I don't have a problem modifying bricks. I do not have a problem. Now I try not to do it if I don't have to. But since I like lighting things up, you have to run the wiring somehow. And so I have Galaxy Explorers lit up. I don't think I can show you one right now, but I do have Galaxy Explorers lit up. And in order to do that, you have to drill through the stud to get the light through the stud. Now you can get those new lighting kits that are so nano, so small that the wires would fit between the bricks. I haven't done any of that. I have life lights, the old ones, that the wires are too thick to do that. But anyway, I was going to talk about a whole bunch of stuff, but I forgot it now. So it doesn't matter. How long I've been doing this? A long time, so I think it's time to wrap it up. You guys have been awesome. I do appreciate you joining. My original intent tonight was to pull pieces to build the 6991. Never got there, but I am going to do a video about that pretty soon. I got off on my beautiful tangents about my hobby and my mental health and stuff like that. Sure, it is what it is. I enjoyed this, and I enjoyed the feedback I got from you guys. I do appreciate all the comments. I hope I saw most of them. I wish I saw all of them. So I do tend to talk a lot, and I do tend to laugh at my own jokes, but that's just who I am. So, and I do tend to say a lot, which is my high school teachers used to get mad at me during my speech reports, my book reports, and all that stuff. But it is what it is. I am not a paid. I'm not a paid speaker, and I will say a lot. So I hope you guys enjoyed this. I really enjoyed this tonight, and I'm glad I did it. And I wasn't planning on doing it, but I'm glad I did it. So you guys all stay safe, take care, and I'll figure out how to get out of this live now, because I do not know how. I think it's up here. Yeah, right there. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching.